Part 4, part 5. I don't know what part I'm on. Sorry. It's kind of a good story. Hopefully you're entertained. I get about 10, 12 feet from this pit. It's a drain pit. There's a sewer drain grate down there. But it's this damn pit. It's like this damn near 2 feet deep. It's, 4 or 5, maybe almost close to 6 feet, around. It's a pit. And 10, 12 feet from it. And I'm booking on this little mower. And I get 10, 12 feet from this pit before I realize it's there. And I'm like, holy shit. So I snatched the wheel and I bumped back onto the sidewalk. Just narrowly missed that pit. And I was like, well, damn. I almost died. Not legitimately, but, that wouldn't have been good. And I was like, well, I don't know if there's any more of those things in line continuing on down the road. So I'm just going to keep my ass on the sidewalk. And if a cop stops me and says something, I'm going to explain the situation. And hopefully, small town country cop, he'll understand. But I didn't get stopped. I made it all the way down to Napa. Got in there. I got the starter. Was laughing and joking a little bit about the situation, having to ride the lawnmower with the guys in there, and I picked my foot up and flipped the front of my shoe up, did my shoe trick to denote that I'm missing half a foot, and told them, there's only so far that I can go, and I'm not sure I could have made it, and even if I'd have made the walk, I still got to be able to change this starter. So back out, got on the lawnmower, and I turned the lawnmower around, and I doodled my way back to the Jeep. Got back to the Jeep, and then it was time to do the starter. Now, my dad also has a toolkit in the Jeep. Unfortunately, the toolkit that my dad has in the Jeep is more geared toward home repair than it is towards automotive repair. But it does have a socket set and some wrenches. He only has ASC, or he only has metric wrenches. It doesn't have ASC wrenches, but he did have ASC sockets. And I'm old school American. I prefer American ASC standard over metric any day. But the pain in the ass about these Jeeps is they use, a lot of American parts. They also use foreign parts. I think French. I think the transmission, it's ice and something. I think it's actually a French transmission. And then they use, different other components that they end up using metric bolts. So it's a conflab of both metric and standard. And you gotta, guess which is which. But I'm thinking, this is gonna be simple. It's a starter. 2 bolts on the starter, and the starter's got like 4 posts on it. We get down there, and you only really figure out. At first, I think there's 3 wires, but it ends up being 2. But I'm down there, and I can't see shit because of my eyes the way they are, and they didn't have a work light. My dad was going to go in the gas station and buy a flashlight, but they had already gone to the gas station and bought a set of jumper cables because they didn't have jumper cables. And I already bought this starter. Damn starter was $189. Now there was a $50 core charge, so they got $50 back from that, but $189. Now, admittedly, he did the. I gotta say, the guy at Napa gave me a manager's discount, so I got the starter for $123 instead of the $139 that it originally was. But still, $123 for a fucking starter, man. Ugh. So I'm down there, and there's just two bolts on the starter. I'm sorry about the ring. There's just two bolts on the starter. One on the bottom and goes through the front, and one on the top and goes through the back. Cool. One bolt is a ASE standard 5/8, and the other one is a metric 14 millimeter. And I'm growling and cursing the engineers at Chrysler Corporation in 1992. And I'm fighting with these bolts because I can't see them. The top one, of course, is the 14 millimeter, and it's the hardest one to get the socket on because there's very little clearance. Fighting with these damn bolts, finally get them undone. I took the top bolt all the way out. I broke the bottom bolt, and then on the front of the starter, well, on top of the starter is a solenoid, and I discovered that there's actually only two wires, the battery wire and the ignition wire. That's perfect. Easy. The battery wire is held on by a 1/2-inch nut. The ignition wire is held on by a 5/16 nut. Both of these nuts are very low profile nuts, and they don't really need to be, but they are. And a low profile nut means the nut is very shallow. There's not much meat to it, which makes it extremely difficult to hold on to with the socket. Any little variation in your wrist and the socket will slip off. There's no meat for the socket to grip onto. So I'm now fighting to get these damn nuts off. I finally get them off. Wires are disconnected. I take the bottom bolt out the rest of the way. Starter's free. Hallelujah. Now I have to gently ease the starter down because I have a very narrow gap between the frame rail and the transmission cooler lines. Ease the starter out. It's out. It's terrible. It's horrible. It is covered in black gunk. They have a bad oil leak somewhere that I have got to address. I don't know if that's what ended up frying the starter or what. I have no idea. At this point, I'm pretty shot. I'm laying down here under the Jeep. Fortunately, this Jeep is lifted a little bit. It's got like a 2-inch, it seems to have like a 2-inch body lift on it. Which is great because that gives me a little bit of extra clearance. I can get all the way up under this Jeep without having to jack it up. Well, maybe it's just the way it sits, because looking at mine looks about the same. They might have slightly taller. No, my tires are probably taller. I don't know. But the Jeeps, they're high. You can get up under them. And I get all the way up under it. Where I was, the transmission crossmember was pressing uncomfortably into my chest, but not painfully. So I could, do what I was doing. And, but I'm laying on this extremely rough, gritty asphalt. My back looks like I have been punished with a cat of 9 tails. I haven't, though. I'm not into all that. Oh my lord. Um, my shoe kept coming off my foot. I at one point had to ask my dad, "Can you please slide my shoe back onto my stump?" Because I would move my foot, and there's very little to hold my shoe on, so it would, scoop off my foot, and then I was laying there for a while with my heel on the asphalt, and ordinarily it wouldn't have been a problem, but I felt every little prickle of the asphalt. I guess because of the Charcos, I don't know. But